Now at 5, Utah lawmakers are back to work at the state capitol, where they're live with everything you need to know about this year's legislative session. Plus, middle school students in Sandy back to in-person learning after asbestos was found in the classroom. Hear where they're going to school now. And the Piute murder suspect accused of killing a 16-year-old girl appeared in court today, who the judge banned him from speaking to.
Live from Utah's first TV station, ABC4 News celebrates 75 years.
Welcome to ABC4 News at 5 o'clock. I'm Emily Flores. We thank you for joining us here this evening. We do begin with the 2023 legislative session that is kicked off today. ABC4's chief political correspondent and anchor, Glenn Mills, is live at the state capitol with a recap of what's going on and how the legislatures and lawmakers are ready to get to work. Glenn?
Yeah, here we go again. Emily, lawmakers back to work today for the first day of the legislative session. A lot of hot issues will be taken up this year. We have the budget, we have potential tax cuts, transgender rights, and school vouchers. Helping us break down the legislative session is columnist Robert Gerke with the Salt Lake Tribune, also a regular guest on Inside Utah Politics. Robert, appreciate your time. You wrote an article previewing the session. You made an interesting comparison between young Robert Gerke coming in for the first time 26 years ago, wide-eyed and optimistic, and now the gray, jaded, cynical Robert Gerke. Politics will do that to a person.
It will, and you've spent enough time up here. You spend a few more than your share up here, I think, and you kind of get used to how things work, and you see a lot more. And I think this session has the makings to be one that, you know, kind of disappoints in that regard. I mean, there's some things to be a little skeptical about.
You talk about that in your article. Let's get into a few of those points. You say this is a year that could be a culture war like we haven't seen before. Talk about why.
Yeah, I feel like we've got a lot of these issues coming to a head. You mentioned transgender issues, the abortion issue. They're going to be working on that, refining that. You know, there's just ESG, the environmental, social, and governance scores, basically. There's these issues that have been kind of percolating out there for a number of years, and now we're going to see them kind of come to a head, and they're all coming to a head at once, including, you know, school vouchers. There's going to be a bill up tomorrow morning on abortion, trying to sort of reinstate that outright ban that passed, you know, after Dobbs. And so all of these are coming to a head, and it kind of overshadows a lot of the things that we talked about, transportation, taxes, things like that.
There's some things you would like to see the legislature do that you don't think they will. Talk about some of those.
Well, I mean, some of them I think they will do. I mean, I think tax cuts, transportation, you know, we've talked a little bit about some of the environmental issues, the Great Salt Lake and other water issues. All of these things have big issues that need to be addressed. And they kind of get pushed aside a little bit by some of these culture war issues. But yeah, I'm hopeful. Housing affordability and homelessness, for example. There's a commitment to do something on it, and we kind of have to wait and see how it plays out.
What is it about today's environment that we're seeing these culture wars come to a head like this?
I think it's sort of our divided politics. I think there's a lot of incentive for politicians to score political points, to grandstand and cater to their base, especially in this state where most of our elections aren't competitive for a two-party or even at the primary level. They kind of got to cater to that convention crowd. And so, you know, both sides, but especially on the Republican majority side, they cater to the extremes. And so that's what the extremes want. They want vouchers. They want the abortion bills or bans. They want transgender bans on hormone therapy and surgery for minors. And so, you know, those are the things that kind of get a lot of attention. And people, especially young, sort of more strident legislators, are really eager to seize on those and score points.
Yeah, I know you've heard from your sources as well as I have that some of these issues you talk about, vouchers, the transgender bills, they're going to start moving this week. What about this? We saw this happen last year as well, really getting into the big, beefy issues in the first week of the session.
Yeah, I mean, I think because some of these other issues, things like how much we're going to spend on housing, affordability, those take a little bit more time to play out and kind of reliant on the budget. So you can tee these up right away. They're going to get a lot of headlines, but then maybe you can put them aside and move on to the other things of the day. And so, yeah, it's going to be, we're opening with a bang, you know.
Yeah.
The abortion bill up tomorrow. Probably have vouchers before the end of the week. There's the transgender bill that could be up by the end of the week. All of these are moving very, very quickly.
One thing you make an argument for that you don't think will get done would be all-day kindergarten. We dealt with that last year. It's going to be up again this year. Talk about why you believe that's important.
Well, they're taking these incremental steps to try to incentivize, I guess, districts to adopt this. But we know what the benefits are of all-day kindergarten. Kids do better when they have that sort of early foundation. It's just a matter of putting the money behind it. And so far, they've been a little reluctant to do it in a big way. I think if they made it statewide, we'd see the benefits, and all of Utah would see the benefits of that.
All right, Robert, appreciate your insight and your perspective on the upcoming session. We'll be following along for the next 45 days. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep. All right, these are just some of the hundreds of issues that state lawmakers will be taking up here on Utah's Capitol Hill. ABC4's Annika Johns meeting up with leadership on both sides of the aisle tonight. She's live just outside of the state capitol, continuing our team coverage on tonight's opening day of the legislative session. Annika.
Thanks, Glenn. So there are some hot button topics this year as the general session begins. And while Utah leadership has a lot on their mind, there are still a few topics at the forefront of their mind as the session begins. The 2023 general legislative session started this morning with an oath of office before Utah leadership got to work. Some of the hot button topics include Senate Bill 16, which would prohibit sex characteristic surgeries to be performed on a minor.
This medical process is keeping many of our youth alive, as they have the highest rate of suicide.
And House Bill 215, which would amend the teacher salary supplement program, creating an increased salary for teachers, but also links those salaries to school choice scholarships.
I've heard it from parents with tears in their eyes, and I think they want the ability to take their dollars and be able to put them in a school where their kids can be educated.
The education community does not feel is a good step in the right direction.
Speaking with the Senate, they told me that right now there is no limit to the ask, and that one of their biggest priorities is making sure that money goes to the right places.
We're in a great spot as a state, and because last year we spent less than we have some money this year.
We'll continue to cover the general session for the next 45 days as it continues, and we'll also be looking at a couple other high-profile bills as the session goes on. Reporting live from the Utah State Capitol, Annika Johns, ABC4 News.
Annika, thank you. We continue our team coverage now with another big issue weighing on the minds of lawmakers here on Utah's Capitol Hill, and that is Utah's dire drought situation. Specifically, what do we need to do to make sure we are doing everything we can to save the Great Salt Lake? ABC4 meteorologist Nate Larson live on the shores of the Great Salt Lake for us tonight. And Nate, tell us about what is being done to help conserve water during this legislative session.
You bet. We'll talk about some of the bills that have come up, Glenn. Boy, Mother Nature's sure doing her part with a little bit of the snow out here this evening, as well as the incredible snowpack that we've had this year. But the extended drought that we've been in that's gone over the span of about 2 decades, it's being felt severely across the Beehive State. And so some of the top priorities of this Utah's legislative session are going to be ways that we can mitigate some of the impacts of the drought, and a handful of water-related bills or conservation bills have been introduced. Now, some of the bills talk about anything from how schools can conserve or use less water. Even one bill specifies golf courses being regulated as far as required to disclose how much water that they use each calendar year. And other bills like House Bill 150 address issues with water emergency declarations and how farmers and ranchers might be protected if their water right is repurposed during a water emergency as well.
If a water right is taken from a farmer or rancher, then they will be compensated for that loss of crops.
So a bill like this one is being introduced just because of the severity of the drought situation that we are in. It came about last year. Representative Albrecht was tasked with coming up with this bill due to some of the dire drought issues we did have. So the snowpack numbers are looking great, even with the current water year being excellent. We all still need to do our part in conserving water, because we want to, the more we can conserve, the more we'll likely have in our reservoirs and surplus to help replenish what's lost here at the Great Salt Lake. If you want to find out ways that you can conserve water at home, even right now in the wintertime, you can always visit slowtheflow.org. Live at the shores of the Great Salt Lake, Nate Larson, ABC4 News.
All right, thank you, Nate. We turn now to newly sworn-in State Senator Karen Kwan. That happening just today. She won a special election that took place on Sunday and Monday, so she is taking the place of outgoing Senator Karen Maine. She, of course, announced her resignation earlier in the month due to health concerns as she has been battling cancer. Now, Senator Kwan comes from the Utah House of Representatives. That means there is a vacant seat to fill there now, and one person stepping up to do that, her name is Verona Maga. She wants to replace Senator Kwan in House District 31, and she has Kwan's endorsement. This is what Kwan is saying. She is the person I trust to continue my legacy in the House. She has my full support. The replacement is ultimately determined by a vote of party delegates from the district. That vote, by the way, will take place on January 27th. We are going to continue our live coverage here on the front lines of the legislative session coming up tonight at 6 o'clock. We are going to introduce you to a new state representative who had 3 days to prepare to be thrown into the fire of this legislative session. Most have months, even a year, to prepare for this day. Live on Utah's Capitol Hill, Glenn Mills, ABC 4 News.
All right, Glenn, we appreciate your coverage out there today. Let's head over for a first look at the forecast with forecaster Bob Bedore and for Chief Meteorologist Alana Brophy. Hey, Bob.
Hey,
good to have you.
It's been great to be here, and we've got all kinds of weather all over the state. We're getting a lot of that snow going on. In fact, right outside our own studio, you can see that we're just blocking out the camera. 36 degrees outside right now. Look at 34, excuse me. It blocked even my view. But as we get going, we've got little storms going throughout the state. If we take a look at our storm tracker radar, you can see that there's kind of 3 main areas, and let me dive down into those just a little bit. We'll show you northern Utah. You can see it's starting to move its way east, a pretty good, healthy little bit going. They're going to start to dwindle out, but they're looking good right now. Cedar City area starting to move its way across there, and then even in the east, we're getting in a healthy dose all up and down our state. Again, those storms are going to be dwindling down from what they are now, but we'll see how they go. And if you take a look out Snow Basin, that's a good little trail to run. And then we jumped all the way to another part of Snow Basin, but you can see our temperatures dropping from north to south, already looking pretty good. We're going to be cooler. We're about 5 degrees below normal, and we do have these winter alerts going on right now. These are going to go on until 5 a.m. See a lot of state that purple, a winter weather advisory, and then we've got the winter storm warning as we've got, that's going to go on again, like I said, till 5 a.m. So that's what we're looking at. Cedar City getting plenty of snow, but I'll tell you where else you can see more snow and what's going to go on for the rest of your week. Coming up, my full forecast in just a little bit. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Bob. Well, American Fork Canyon closed today because of avalanche danger. There were a couple small slides there today, one on Timpanogos Highway and the other on Tibble Fork. This is a view of the mouth of the canyon blocked off. Crews cleaning up those avalanches now. Luckily, no one was trapped or even hurt. American Fork Canyon, we're told, is closed until further notice. And students exposed to asbestos at Eastmont Middle School in Sandy returned to the classroom today, but not their normal classroom. The Canyon School District moved Eastmont students to the old Crescent View Middle School while they clear the building of asbestos. Students have been doing remote learning since the discovery before winter break. Now, the Canyon School District spokesman told us they don't know when it will be safe for kids to return to Eastmont Middle School.
But what we can guarantee is that the mitigation will be thorough and that when it's done, it will be safe for the students to return to all parts of the old Eastmont building.
The district saying buses will continue to take kids to the temporary school until cleanup is finished. And new information this evening of Piute County. The teen murder suspect accused of killing a 16-year-old girl appeared in court today. Now, through an interpreter, the judge informed 17-year-old Francisco Daniel Aguilar that he will remain in custody without bail. He's being charged as an adult accused of shooting Jacqueline Nunez last week in the leg and then in the head. The judge also banning Aguilar from having any contact with the victim's family.
I'm going to order you to have no contact with the victim's family in this case. You're to have no contact directly or indirectly.
A preliminary hearing is scheduled for March 20th.
Well, we're starting to see the snow slowing down a little bit, but it's still coming down outside Utah State. I'll tell you everything that you can expect for the next few days. Coming up in my full forecast in just a few minutes.
One Utah woman's work to save domesticated waterfowl across the Wasatch Front has earned her the international title of Duck Defender. And now she hopes to use that passion to also destigmatize autism. I'll have the story coming up at 6.